Bases dropped on another round of Soccer's morning show. Sorry for 9:06. This is what happens when you sit there and it's like, okay, you've got to hit some levers and do some things. And, of course, it's me who's trying to hit the levers and do the things. So, yeah, Sean, yes. I was wondering if you were going to be cursing the sky after what happened last night. Vegas Golden Knights winning 7-2. And they now have a 2-0 lead in the Stanley Cup final. So I didn't know. Sean, I did not know if you were going to be up and around this morning. It was kind of manic, Abby. Yeah, Will, I did have fun turning the show off. Okay, for those that might not have caught the end of the show this morning, first and foremost, I think it speaks a lot to how dedicated you guys are. And, there are those of you who will watch the show on Twitch and then you listen to it later on the app and on the web and things like that. And so, as you guys well know, when it comes to technology, I'm somewhat challenged. Not a surprise. And so I guess this will qualify as the opening kickoff this morning, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee. KickoffCoffeeCO.com. There's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. Yesterday, for the diehards, you kind of got to see how the sausage was made, because there is a sequence that I have to hit. It's like click this, click this, click this, and then there's a big old button on the right-hand side of the screen that we use to produce the show that says end broadcast. Yeah, it's a big old thing, big old red button that says end broadcast. And traditionally, as a part of the sequence, you go boom, 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 boom. You hit end broadcast. When you do the end slate, and it shows you how you can catch up with the parts of the show that you can catch up with. Traditionally, when that's going, you hit end broadcast, this big old red button that's in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Then everything's cool, and Jarrett and I can have our discussions as we go about the rest of the day and what else we need to take care of, that kind of stuff. In trying to get everything squared away and done, forgot to hit the big red button. Bam, I know. We've all missed hitting the end broadcast button. So yesterday it was a Monday, and that was the day. So it's like, I'm thinking that I've hit the sequence, everything's done. You hit all the buttons you need to hit, and then screen comes back up, and I'm just talking with Jarrett. About, okay, hey, here's what's going on the rest of the day. What do you have going on? All this kind of stuff. Because Jason was on his way to Los Angeles, and so hopefully Jason is still sleeping, considering it's a little after 6 o'clock in the morning, out on the West Coast currently, as we're live. So, kind of forgot to do it, and I'm talking with Jarrett, and then Will mentions, and he's not the only one. Will's mentioning John. John. I think Abby was a part of it. I mean, the OG was a part of it. All that kind of stuff. Yeah, so you got to see how the sausage was made. You got to see a bit of the post-production meeting yesterday. So I will effort and endeavor to hit the big red button so you guys aren't subjected to that kind of talk on a daily basis. So there you go. Public service announcement for those of you who are in the Atlanta area and are in the northeastern part of town. The Boss is going to be singing the national anthem at the Gwinnett Stripers game tomorrow night. So, if you guys want to come and hang out and come see us. So, at Cool Ray tomorrow night, the Boss is singing the national anthem, and I could not be more proud. So, we got that to talk about. And I'm going to watch that tomorrow night too. Yeah, luckily, Bam, I didn't say anything bad. Once again, story time with John. I learned that one real quick. Hopefully, lucky I didn't say anything bad. I was in college back in the 1790s, and I was broadcasting a women's basketball game. But the technology that we used to try and get everything up and running for some reason wasn't working. There's a lever that wasn't working. You're flipping something, flipping this, flipping that, and then, it wasn't working. And so first half of the scheduled women's basketball game basically wasn't getting broadcast. I guess they were doing music or whatever. Toward the end of the first half, and literally like toward the end of the first half, there's like, yes, Will, that is true. First rule of broadcasting, the mic is always hot, and that is what this is all about. This is the first rule of broadcasting and how I learned it. Literally like 30 seconds to go in the half, everything kicks back in and everything's back to working. So we go to the half, and I'm trying to reconstruct during halftime the entire first half of action, talking about momentum and shifts and swings and stats and all this kind of stuff. And I went for a good 7 or 8 minutes and then tossed to commercial, or at least I thought I did. Then I turned to my broadcast partner and I said, man, if that wasn't enough, BS, Mike was still hot. And it was the first year of the broadcast contract with the student station and the university for doing broadcast sports. And so that went out over the air, and I get back to the station, and I'm told by one of the folks who was one of the hires up that what I said at halftime got out over the air. And so other than being mortified, I was profoundly angry at the time because it was year one of a deal, and, you want to keep the relationship, square with the athletic department. And we had a bit of an interesting meeting with elevated voices and tones about trying to do things correctly and have folks who could activate technology and things like that and make sure that we had folks in the right places. But and after that, everything was cool. And to this day, if I'm not mistaken, the student station is still humming on and doing very, very well with the relationship they have with the athletic department. So things you learn in the first year of an operation. And yeah, he didn't do a Tom Brenneman. I know, Will. It's just there are folks that, oh, goodness gracious. But yeah, it could have been a whole lot worse. But that was my first lesson in the message this morning, that the mic is always hot. Bam, you're talking about something. Bam's looking for a clip of it. Bam, unless it is on audio cassette, and I mean literally like audio cassette, not like a card or like a SD card or an HD card or anything like that. You got to find it. It's on an audio cassette, maybe. And you are talking something that is at least 75 years old. And we do too, Abby. Yeah, we've got a turntable, and we've got all those kinds of things. We've still got cassette tapes and players and all that. But yeah, that was my first lesson 75 years ago, that the mic is always hot. And so we had an inadvertent moment. We had an inadvertent moment yesterday where after the show was over, I forgot to kill the show off, and you end up with us talking shop. So that was what happened this yesterday morning at the end of the show, and I want to apologize first and foremost for not getting my sequence right and making sure that when the show is over, the show is over. In as much as there are some times where you could be like the end of Ferris Bueller, and Ferris comes out with the towel on his head. Time to go home. Goodbye. Go on. One of those. So first off, sorry that we had an additional stuff yesterday. Sorry you got to see how the sausage was made. Not that there was a whole lot of stuff that was. It is the naughty option, Nick. You are absolutely correct. So, so sorry about that yesterday, but you did get to see how the sausage was made, and like I said, with me, anything is possible, and we had it happen yesterday. So that's your opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Thanks to those of you who invest in Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Once again, don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. There's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. And they, in turn, in addition to taking 15% off of your purchase, they take 10% reinvested in youth games and youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. But, Bam, if you're looking, if the Twitch pitch is looking for it, you got to find it from basketball season from about 75 years ago. So peach baskets and the whole thing. So it's probably on a cassette tape someplace if someone decided to keep it. We got a lot of stuff this morning. And it's a lot of and there's a lot of stuff that has to do with coaching changes and stupidity down here and global context for large corporations owning soccer clubs, that kind of stuff. Yesterday and this morning, we've had a lot of news overseas. Spurs has announced Ange Postecoglou. Probably in hour number 2 when Jarrett comes in, we can discuss that. Probably do some greatest hits here and go through all of it, but then Jarrett can bring the context in a little later on. The other stuff yesterday happened in Italy, and it was chaos. And I'm hoping that we can bring Nick in to discuss said chaos with a club that he is particularly tight with and very cool towards. Cool in the sense of, love what they do, that kind of a thing. And there's a lot of global context, I'm sure, that will, in the global financial sense, it'll, really piss folks off. No, that is absolutely true, Will. And Castellanos hits a solo shot. Yes, exactly. It's a 4-0. It's a 4-0. See, I'm going. Now, this is the other thing. All right, so I'm reading what Will puts in. Nick Castellanos did not hit a solo home run to make it a 4-0 ball game yesterday. This is how much time I'm spending with soccer over the last 7 years. I see 4-0, and my first instinct is to go 4-0, and I'm talking baseball. That's what has happened ever since this network has started. I've gravitated toward saying 4-0 when it comes to score lines. I have gravitated toward saying match instead of game. So it's a football match yesterday, having a discussion with a coach someplace. And I have to catch myself. It's like, nope, not that football, the other football. So, yeah, my brain is starting to have soccer terminology as its priority when I'm discussing other sports. So it was, So anytime I see 4-0, I'm thinking 4-0. Doesn't matter what the sport is. My default, that's part of what we can discuss here because we'll save that question. Does Maldini go to Spurs? Because, could they afford him? I think that's the first thing. But we have, and that is your global crossover question involving both Nick and Jarrett. Since Ange is going to Spurs and Maldini is no longer employed, the whole Maldini thing yesterday was insane. And we're going to get into that coming up. Yeah, and that's the thing. That we're getting into. Yeah, Knicks, I often call penalties and egg ball fouls. Yes. Soccer brain right there with you. Yeah, Coco, that's the thing. Leao's regretting signing the extension only 24 hours later. You go to Rafa Leao's Twitter, and it had the thoughtful emoji with the raised eyebrow. Yeah, see, I'm right there with you. No, and that's the thing. Yeah, American terminology for soccer stuff. Exactly. So, my brain is now officially scrambled with soccer as a priority when it comes to numbers and matches and games and things like that. So, but yeah, we do have a lot of stuff out of Italy and the context of it of having a hedge fund owner and what it means in the grand scheme of things. So there's that. We've got stupidity down here. And I was going to start the show with that this morning. We've got some other stuff going on. We got plenty of stupidity down here that we can start out with this morning. And the first batch of Stupidity Down Here comes from our friends at Sky. And it has to do with the continuing stories involving Vinicius Jr. And yesterday, 7 people involved in different racist attacks. See, now I love how Sky phrases this. 7 people involved in different racist attacks. And the fact that it's different racist attacks really should anger a lot of you. Different racist attacks against Vinicius Jr. have been punished by Spain's State Commission Against Violence, Racism, Xenophobia, and Intolerance in Sport, according to the country's sports commission. 4 men were fined 60,000 euro, which is it's 52,000 pounds. Banned from sports venues for 2 years. I'm going to read this first, and then we'll react to it. After hanging a banner reading "Madrid hates Real" and an inflatable black effigy in a replica of a Vinicius number 20 shirt on a bridge near Real's facilities before the team's cup match against Atletico Madrid January 26. 3 others were fined 5,000 euro, 4,300 pounds, banned from sports venues for a year after making racist gestures toward Vinicius Jr. during a La Liga match at Valencia's Mestalla Stadium back on May 21st. The sanctions come 11 days after the arrest of 4 men on suspicion of hanging the effigy and their release on bail by a Madrid court. Vinicius Jr. has been in the spotlight for the past couple of weeks after calling La Liga in Spain racist for following the abuse he suffered during Real's match against Valencia. Brazilian government has called for severe sanctions against those responsible for racial slurs. Brazil will play friendlies against Guinea June 17 and Senegal on the 20 as part of an anti-racism campaign. Story continues. Earlier this month, Valencia had, remember, their partial stadium closure reduced to 3 matches and their fine cut to 27,000 euro, 23.5 in British pounds, following an appeal for the racist abuse of Vinicius by fans. Spanish Football Federation Appeals Committee said it had decided to partially uphold, in quotes, Valencia's appeal. Means the partial closure of the Mestalla has come down from 5 matches with an initial 45,000 euro, 39,000 pound punishment, reduced by 18,000 euro. Remember, Vinicius threatened to leave the pitch in that game against Valencia on Sunday after being subjected to alleged racist chants from the crowd in Madrid, who said the abuse constituted a hate crime, filed a complaint with the Spanish State Attorney General's office. Valencia had 10 working days to file an appeal to the appeals committee. La Liga players and officials called for racism to be tackled in Spain in the wake of Sunday's match. Before Tuesday's games with Real Valladolid and Barca and Celta Vigo and Girona, players stood behind banners. Vinicius was set to serve a 2 or 3 match ban, in irony down here, after being sent off at Valencia, but Spain's competition committee, a body formed by one member of La Liga, one from the Spanish Sports Council, and one from the RFEF, or the Spanish FA, rescinded the red card. La Liga said it would request greater jurisdiction to punish clubs whose fans were guilty of racist abuse after feeling powerless, in quotation marks, at the lack of current sanctions in the wake of the latest Vinicius incident. According to the country's law, La Liga can currently only identify and report incidents. Punishment is rarely handed out. The inflatable doll hung from the railings, "Madrid hates Real Madrid." Remember, Javier Tebas said that La Liga could eradicate racism from Spanish football in 6 months, given adequate sanctioning power. And remember the back and forth with Javier Tebas and Vinicius, which was just absolutely ridiculous. Tebas reminding Vinicius Jr. that he needed to become more educated. But, all right, so let's go back to the top now that we've given a bit of context here. All right, let's run through it. 7 people involved in different racist attacks were punished. Foreman fined €60,000. I don't know if it's 60,000 total or 60,000 apiece. I'm hoping it's the latter. I doubt it is. Banned from sports venues for 2 years. I'm going to roll up my sleeves here. Make sure that my jacket doesn't fall down over my shoulders as I give this response. Woo! That'll learn them. I know that's a fantastic Southern expression. That'll learn them. A whole 2 years. 2 years. After hanging a banner and hanging an inflatable black effigy in a replica Venetia's shirt on a bridge, on an overpass, back in January. So 4 months and a week later, you finally get fines and a 2-year suspension from sports venues. 2 years. The one thing that I've always maintained in situations like this is the enforcement issue. I want to know how you're going to enforce this. I really do. Is it the James Dolan facial recognition technology that he claims to have at Madison Square Garden to keep fans and folks that say negative things about his New York Knicks out of the building? I'd love for all of us to have the James Dolan facial recognition technology. James Dolan, by the way, for those that don't know, is the owner of the New York Knicks. Claims to have facial recognition technology so he can keep folks from going inside Madison Square Garden who say bad things. You got that? I doubt it. Is it like in the post office where you have the 10 most wanted and you've got a dude's picture on a piece of paper? These individuals are not allowed in this building. And it's pictures of all the dudes, all the individuals that are allegedly, apparently, probably, possibly not allowed in a particular venue. Could be like Bobby Valentine. He comes walking up. He's got a fake mustache and glasses, and he's wearing a hat and a wig. Oh, that's not me. Okay, good. Here's a ticket. You go in. I'm here with my friend. Hand over the shoulder. The enforcement for me is part of this. How are you going to enforce these individuals, these 4 men, from getting into a sports venue for a 2-year period? Frankly, it should be like forever and not just 2 years. But how do you enforce 2 years? How do you enforce this anyway? Is it the wanted poster? Dude comes walking up. Oh, you look familiar. Is this you? No, it's not me. Legitimately. We all know fans will be in positions to where they will sit there and go, okay, you know what? I want to go to a sporting event. I'm not going to sit in the supporters section, but I'll go up and sit up in the rafters. Hey, friend, I'd like to go with you. Well, how are you going? You're supposedly banned. How are you going to make it past the ticket takers? I have a plan. I want to know how this is going to be enforced. In every country that we see something like this go down, first off, a ban of 2 years. That's showing them. For hanging an effigy, hanging a banner and an inflatable effigy of Vinicius Jr. That is, I'll cut it in sections for lack of better knowledge, a €15,000 fine and a 2-year suspension from sporting events in Spain. Spain's State Commission Against Violence, Racism, Xenophobia, and Intolerance in Sport Yeah, that seems real tolerant or intolerant. You did one of the most heinous things we've seen in recent memory, got caught, and this state commission, €15,000 fine and 2 years suspension from any sporting event. How is that a deterrent? How is that a deterrent? It's not. Individuals who are suspended from these games, from any sporting event, will find ways in. You gonna hang that wanted poster at every gate, at every sporting venue? Have it laminated up nice and tight so it doesn't fray and so you don't, lose the quality of the photograph of the individual, if this individual is not supposed to be allowed in here over a full 2-year period? And is it 2 years from the moment of the event back on January 26th, or is it from the moment of June 6th? You tell me. How Spain or how any country is going to try and enforce this, I'd love to know. I'd absolutely love to know how you're going to try to pull this off. Three others were fined €5,000, banned from sports venues for a year. Racist gestures back on May 21st. Financial deterrent doesn't seem. I mean, look, you're going to have people who will crowdfund their friends to pay these fines, because you will have just as many stupid people go, yeah, you're showing them, yeah. Maturity on full display. It's a badge of honor. I can guarantee you that some of these folks are going to have friends who will crowdfund with other friends and go, man, that's great. You really showed them. You got a fine and a suspension. Yeah. We'll carry on. You know that there are going to be friends who will help crowdfund these fines. You know that there will be. Flat out support for this stupidity. 11 days after the arrest of the four guys on suspicion of hanging the effigy. If I'm Vinicius Jr., as much as I want to sit there and say that I enjoy playing at Real Madrid, I don't know if I want to deal with any of this nonsense. I want to go someplace else. And if I'm if I'm impacted like Vinicius Jr., why would I endorse going to play in that league if you're going to be having this kind of stuff? Why? Why would I? I wouldn't endorse it. It's like, man, you've seen what happened to me. I wouldn't go and play over there. Yeah, and Bam, you're probably right. They don't need to crowdfund. I was thinking outside of the Ultras. But yeah, Bam's like, yeah, they might need they don't need to crowdfund. They have a fund that'll help pay for it instantly. Yeah. Yeah, and Ricky, you're right. They should go to jail. Absolutely they should. They should be thrown under the jail. Like the Wicked Witch of the West, and in Wizard of Oz, and the house comes and smashes on top of her, and all you see are the socks and the slippers. That's it. Under the jail. Under the jail. Bam says he knows a person in Australia that was banned for 10 years from soccer games, went to an FFA Cup match and had a banner with 10 years. Here's to 5 more as he ripped a flare behind it. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. I'd love to figure out how. Love to figure out how you're going to enforce this. I think, frankly, it's a story in and of itself. How are you going to enforce this? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why would you want to go in that country? And, we mentioned stupidity down here since we're on a roll this morning, and this might be where we spend most of the first hour. Where was that piece that I was attached to it? Oh, it was in The Guardian. You want to know how stupidity down here can affect you? We go to France. And having to do with promotion and relegation. I don't know if you saw this from the weekend. From Reuters, Bordeaux's attempt to win promotion to Ligue 1 is in jeopardy after their final match of the season was called off when one of their supporters assaulted the goal scorer from the other team. Bordeaux needed to better Metz's result to finish second and secure promotion to the top flight in Ligue 2. But they were behind in the 22nd minute. As Rodez players celebrated the goal, a supporter entered the pitch, shoved the goal scorer who fell to the ground. Later taken off on a stretcher as referee stopped the match. After the teams went to the dressing room, the ref said the match would not resume, adding that the goal scorer suffered a concussion. The LPF, which governs French football's top two tiers, said the disciplinary committee would meet to consider the appropriate action. Bordeaux president said they would lodge a complaint against the supporter and urged the LFP to allow the game to be completed. If you're going to do it behind closed doors and pick it up from the point that everybody walked off. Quote, Bordeaux president Gerard Lopez, I'd like to see this played out in sporting terms on the pitch. It's still football. We'll be present at the committee meeting. We'll assert our rights as well as appealing if need be. Situation's complicated as Metz and Bordeaux were meant to play their matches at the same time. Metz beat Bastia 3-2. Bordeaux, who are 3 points behind, now know the goal difference they need to overhaul if the match is replayed. Only the top two teams promoted to Ligue 1 this season, Le Havre, have sealed promotion and been crowned champs. Rodez chair Pierre-Olivier Murat, dejected as the club are fighting to preserve their second-tier status. As things stand, they're 17th, needing 3 points to leapfrog Annecy. Resume or replay the match. I've never seen matches played after the last day. So that's what stupidity down here is doing in other countries. Oh, yeah, and Bam, we talked about the end of the we played the after you went to bed last night. We played the Toby Alderweireld goal with the craziness that was attached there. First title in I think 60-something years, and it could have been Union Saint-Gilloise' first title in like 80-something. Yeah, we played the Toby Alderweireld goal after you went to bed last night. But, yeah, so you want stupidity down here? You might end up with it in France. So there's all of that you get to put up with. But so plenty to talk about this morning. And there's plenty to get into. Like I said, it's a 4-year deal for Ange Postecoglou instead of the rolling deal that he had with Celtic. You wonder who's going to go with. And Abby, belated happy birthday. Glad you were celebrating yesterday. And Ricky, we were talking about Karim Benzema, and now he's got the 2, possibly 3-year deal where he's going to make like $640 million. So we had all that. Abby, glad, and we talked about the twos match yesterday also. Glad you got the chance to catch up with Ozzy Alonso. I still want my 85 jersey. I want my number 85 Alonso jersey. That's what I want. That's what I'm hunting for. So yeah, that's just, man. Yeah, I mean, it was fun to see 5 put on the board by the twos against Inter Miami. And Friday night in Chester, Pennsylvania, the twos will take on Philadelphia Union 2. So we'll see what happens up there in Chester. And that'll start a busy stretch. 5 of the next 6 for the twos are on the road. The one home match, June 25th, NYCFC comes to town to the Fraction. So keep an eye out. We'll be listening to all the games, all the road games on the SDH network. Jason will have the call on those. I'll have your pregame show and get you squared away for everything to get you ready for Atlanta United 2 as they are climbing the ladder in the Central Division. So we'll keep an eye on keep an eye on that. I know, Bam, but I'm up in the booth. I know, but we don't know how many other matches Ozzy will be playing for the Twos until he gets into game shape. And so it'll be interesting to find out how many more Twos matches he has. Does he go to Philadelphia? Does he take Philly off? But the biggest thing was trying to figure out. I think, Abby, I think that if Atlanta United marketed the 85s, I think that there would be a market for it. I think if they tried to sell the 85 jerseys with Ozzy Alonso in the back, maybe signed them. I think that'd be really cool, but that's just me. So there's that. But a lot of transfer news this morning. But the biggest news, obviously, Ange Postecoglou appointed Tottenham head coach. Joined Spurs on July 1st. Back-to-back Scottish Premiership titles. Spurs held talks with him on Monday after agreeing to terms with Celtic. De Zerbi and Marco Silva were also considered. So it is now Ange who has been appointed. Daniel Levy has praised the coach's positive mentality and attacking style. But the biggest thing, obviously, Dave Heitner at The Guardian says is that you got to get the future of Harry Kane. Tom with a Twos question. Will Wiley be available Saturday? Probably. That would be my guess. There was a discussion about Caleb being available in Los Angeles. So we'll see. And I would imagine that second case, Caleb would be available for the DC match. Because if you are working your way from Argentina, the question is like, if you're flying from Argentina, do you go from Argentina to Los Angeles, or do you go for Atlanta, train on your own, get back into shape, shake off the cobwebs of the U20s, and be ready for DC? So we'll see. Biggest question for Ozzy Alonso was how he woke up on Monday morning after playing Sunday night. It was a late Sunday night. So, I think Caleb started against Uruguay if memory serves. So Caleb got in a lot of playing time with the U20s. But then, Tom, you're talking travel and getting integrated and back into, playing shape and all that kind of stuff, shaking off all those cobwebs and playing in the U20s. So, yes, but Caleb got in a lot of minutes. His stock went up. And do not be surprised, Atlanta United fan, if folks started knocking on the door of the front office and were inquiring about Caleb Wiley. So we'll see what happens there, especially with the tournament that he had in Argentina. So if he flies to LA, he flies to LA for team bonding, and he's just a part of the crew, just to get back into the idea of playing with the guys again. When it comes to playing, probably DC. Coming back from what we saw with the U20s. So it will be interesting. Bam was mentioning, obviously, the first Australian to manage in the Premier League. So he gets fired from being Australia manager, and you're looking at being fired as Australia manager, but you're good enough for the Premier League. So we'll see what happens there. Notes from the training ground. Amar Sejdic available for the LAFC match. He'd been out with a calf injury, I think, for the last month. And this was the notes that I'd seen yesterday, but thank you for recycling. Ozzy won't travel, could be ready to join the first team Saturday against DC. Nothing like having Ozzy on the bench to shut things down for 20 minutes. Caleb returning from the U20s, rejoin the team in Los Angeles. Possible he could play. So we'll see. Caleb could be probably in the game day for Los Angeles. You bring in Caleb to bring in some speed late. You'd have Amar start. And remember what we were talking about with LAFC. It's probably going to be a lineup with the U.S. Open Cup roster that they had last time out because of the lineup that they had in the game against Leon in the second leg of the CONCACAF Champions League. So, getting into that, once again, just to kind of recap how it was with everything that got laid out. Let me get the minutes right, and then I want to go back and see what the starting lineup was last time out for LAFC in the Open Cup. LAFC Open Cup roster, just to kind of give you a comparison. And then LAFC, actually, this was at MLSsoccer.com. So, all right, so here's how it looked with LAFC and Leon back on Sunday. Getting into player numbers, that kind of stuff. We'll see what the stats are for individual players. I don't want shooting stats. Okay. So LAFC, here's how it looked. Here's the minutes of everybody that locked in on the weekend. So here's how it was. Kellen Acosta played 90 minutes. Not really thinking Kellen Acosta is going to be a part of things on Wednesday. Steve Butte played 26. I would anticipate he starts. Bogusz played 45 minutes. I think that Bogusz starts. Denny Bouanga played a full 90. I don't think he starts. Bam, you can back me up with your thoughts on here as we go. Chiellini played 45. Sifu played 45. They may start. Nothing from Crisostomo, Duenas, or Gaines. Ryan Hollingshead played 34. Aaron Long played 70. Maldonado played the other 20 at the position, so I would anticipate Maldonado starts. Murillo played 90. Opoku played 45. Palacios played the full 90. Palencia played 56. Sanchez played 63. He was paired with Tillman, who played the other 27. I would think that Tillman starts. And Carlos Vela played 64. He's probably available for the final 20, but I'm not banking on it. So back on the 23rd in Open Cup, when you had El Tráfico and the Galaxy won, and remember Chiellini called Ricky Puig a clown. LA wins 2-0 May 23rd. Your starting lineup then, Buke, Ordaz, Nathan Ordaz, the 19-year-old from Van Nuys, California, and Kwadwo Poku. That was your front three. Midfield was Bogusz, Crisostomo, and Duenas. Your back four, Javen Romero, who was 17. Noah Dollenmayer, who was 23. Rosales, Diego Rosales, who was 17. Julian Gaines, who's 20. And Jakupovic in net. That was what it was for El Tráfico Open Cup style. Bam and his projections are like this. McCarthy, Bouanga, Sifu, Hollingshead, Opoku, Vela, Chiellini, Tillman, and Sanchez start. So you're saying they go full bore. Okay, so we'll see. I'm thinking it's more the Open Cup lineup because of what happened. And so we'll see what happens. We'll compare and contrast notes and see who's correct in this. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. But remember, this is East. This is East versus West. In the grand scheme of things, I think a lot of those big names, Bam. I think a lot of those big names end up on the bench, and then LAFC goes to Houston for a Western Conference game Saturday night, 8:39 kick on Apple TV. I think that's where, like I said, this is a midweek game against an Eastern Conference opponent. Yippee skippy. So this is why I think that you're going to see more of the Open Cup lineup than you do the first choice, because you want to keep your first choice lineup and get them ready for the match in Houston on the weekend. Because then after that, you've got a home, and it's a home and home in a 4-day span with Houston. So you've got to figure that out too. What do you want to do? What you're staring at is 3 matches in a week for LAFC. Where do you pick your poison? I think you do it with the 2 Houston matches. So that's why I think that this match with Atlanta United, you see more Open Cup guys and you see guys that weren't starting. That's why I went back to the El Tráfico lineup from Open Cup, and that's what I think it's going to look like because of that back-to-back with Houston in short order on the 10th and the 14th, a home and home. So we'll take a look at that. I know that there's a bit of a discussion in the Twitch pitch about, players that could be out the door. Miles, Caleb, and Thiago. Tom is keeping an eye on that. So we'll keep an eye on that. Nick's is hoping that Caleb's people are looking at what happened to George Bello. They are. Caleb has a much higher ceiling. Bad team and situation can kill your career, according to Nick's. Bam thinks that Vela and Bouanga were pissed off, want to get back into it. And Ricky getting back into the Caleb Wiley discussion doesn't appear to be as desperate as Bello. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. But, yeah, I think that those back-to-back matches with Houston, Sunday and then again week from tomorrow. So Sunday, Wednesday, you're going from – in a week's time, you're playing Atlanta United, an Eastern Conference team, at home. Doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, except like the 8th tiebreaker. Then on the weekend, you're in Houston. Then you come back a week from tomorrow and you play at home against Houston. Those are the 2 that I think, if you're choosing 2 out of 3, you're going up against the Western Conference opponent. So that's what I think you're staring at. Pam's going to be at work. Take your lunch break. Take your lunch break at 12:30. That's what you need to do, Bam. Take your lunch break at 12:30. Just kind of push it back, and then up 12:30. Oh, I got lunch. At least, or take a late lunch and watch the second half and figure that out. But yeah, I think that there's going to be some. It's not going to be the full blown. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the full blown lineup for LAFC when it comes to what you're staring at. Christophe Galtier is officially out at PSG. And, okay, all right. So I guess we'll go ahead and give it this. We'll go ahead and do that. Take it out of loop because we know how loud it can be. So here we go. Galtier is officially out at PSG. And Knicks will go over the juice boxes in just a little bit. Galtier is officially out at PSG. And apparently his replacement has already been figured out. Julian Nagelsmann set to be drafted as his replacement, courtesy of our friends at Goal. According to La Parisienne, PSG's football advisor Luis Campos informed Galtier of the club's decision this morning. The official announcement set to follow lasted only 1 year after getting knocked out in the round of 16 to Bayern Munich. Nagelsmann is the front runner to fill Galtier's shoes, with Foot Mercato reporting that the German is in advanced talks with PSG officials. Nagelsmann's been out of work since March. Could be joined at the club by Thierry Henry. The Qatari ownership group have identified Henry as the ideal candidate to serve as Nagelsmann's assistant, as he previously held the position alongside Roberto Martinez with the Belgian national team. So Keep an eye on that. So we'll see what happens with that. Cristiano Ronaldo believes the Saudi Pro League is good and competitive, very good teams, very good Arab players. Infrastructure, I think they need to improve a little bit more. Even the referees, the VAR system, I think they should be a little bit more quicker with VAR. Other small things they need to improve. He's happy there. He wants to continue. He wants to continue. They continue to grow. They want it. They do the work. He'll hang for the next 5 years. He thinks the Saudi League can be number 5 in the world. Number 5 in the world. That's a lot of work, dude. That's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. How likely are Mbappe and Neymar to leave this summer? Well, I think, Ricky, where are they going to go? Where are they going to go more than anything? That's the big question. That Chelsea will want to pick them up. That's the easy part. Yeah, and that's the thing is that you're looking at you're looking at Chelsea will pay for them. It's just ask Bully Clear Lake. They were looking at why though, but because you want the shiny toys. That's absolutely, yeah. I mean, and Nick's point, Chinese Super League tried and failed. Obviously, the Saudis have much deeper pockets. Yeah, and that's probably the one idea in all of this that is probably the more apt comparison is the idea that the Saudi Pro League is going to throw money at everything. We've seen CR38. You're looking at you're looking at it's just Messi with 1.2 double extra large. Benzema heading over. Looks like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang might be heading over. Looks like N'Golo Kante might be heading over. They're just buying talent. They're just buying the talent. So before we bring in our host of soccer over there, Nick Alifi, to discuss what happened in Italy yesterday, and this will earn us our explicit rating. I'm fairly confident we will. Time to read a promo. So I'll get the promo out of the way so Nick can cut his. Time to talk about our friends at Eliminize. Odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's Eliminize service. Eliminize deodorizes enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pet cigarettes and food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process. Makes it easy to work with said realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment, we like that these days, offering a green way to getting rid of toxic odors and residue. Different than Febreze or other masking agents that we have under the sink or above us in the cupboard, because when we reach under the sink or above us in the cupboard and you take out that masking agent, you spray it in the air, there's a reason they call it a masking agent, because all it does is mask the odor. It doesn't attack the problem all the way down to the molecule like our friends at Eliminize do with their proven scientific formula. Pricing very, very easy, either by the cubic foot or parts per million, to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's Eliminize service. And this is where I grab my pen, because this is where you go to the website. Eliminize.com is the website, but do us a favor, as I mark up my hand because the pen had the top off of it. Go /Atlanta after the .com, so that way they know what part of the world you are addressing them from, so they can help you directly with your issues. Full homework assignment. ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta. Eliminize.com/Atlanta. Odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize service, proud sponsors of everything SDH on Tuesday Thoughts. And I know somebody who's got thoughts, because this was why we kind of let Soccer Over There's host Nick Leafy hang out until hour number 2 because for the last, 17, 18 hours, he's been slightly fired up because Nick's couldn't wait to hear Nick's comments on the knucklehead in charge of his beloved Milan. And so that is why Nick is here now to let us all understand the greater context of what was happening yesterday. Because, Nick, as things were happening, it was 1 gone, 2 gone, players mad, players really mad, players feeling like they got played. This situation at Milan is chaotic, and I'll use that word as just the primer for all of this. But let's go back to yesterday and lay out all of the evidence here that has caused your beloved Milan to basically end up in the ditch at the side of the road.
Where do we want to start? To be honest,
we got to start at the beginning. I mean,
all right.
Because what I want this to be is I want this to be an education as to the ownership group, possibilities as to why they acted as they did, and yes, I know that there's a lot of context that has to be drawn out here, and what I want is for folks to understand fully what happened, what is happening, and what could happen involving the club. So let's go back to the sackings yesterday. Let's start with why the owners decided to sack individuals in positions of power. Let's start there.
Essentially, you have champagne taste in a beer budget, according to Jerry Cardinale, the owner of Milan. Right. So Maldini wanted fresh signings. He said, look, we can't compete. And Maldini has said this publicly. He said it on English broadcasts. He said it in Italian broadcasts that we cannot compete in Champions League and Serie A and Coppa Italia with the roster we have. We have to bring in reinforcements. We have to bring in better players. It's time to take a step up. And Jerry with a G, Broke Spice, said, no, we're not doing that. This is not who we are. This is not what we're trying to do. We're really not going to have. And keep in mind, he did not spend a dime in the winter window, right? And let Maldini and team sit there and really try to work through the Rafael Leao re-signing, which drug out far longer than it should have. You have one of the best players on the planet. He should have been re-signed very quickly. How much do you want? Yep. Okay, done. Let's get this. We'll send the release clause through the roof, so that way, if you do leave, the team gets compensated. And nope, they couldn't get the money. They had to haggle over money, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Cardinale does not want to spend money. And there are videos of Jerry going back to 2020 when he was talking about investing in Europe, talking about, well, we're not looking for the top clubs in the world to invest in. We're looking at mid-tier teams. We're looking at these smaller teams to invest in, and then build an academy and essentially follow sort of the Red Bull model, which is, we're going to have clubs all over the world, and they're going to be feeder clubs. They're going to work up to the top of the pyramid. And, we want to stay away from relegation, but, obviously, but we're not trying to spend like the big boys. Well, that's great if you're like FC 20, if you are like Lille, if you are Sassuolo, if you're Udinese, that's fine. Have fun. You're talking about AC mother effing Milan, right? And a team that has fallen on hard times. And that's because you went from having billions of dollars dumped into the club by Berlusconi to being sold to a man who, essentially spent like a drunken sailor with monopoly money taken over by a hedge fund, and the hedge fund actually was willing to spend more than Jerry Cardinal. I mean, that to me is the dumbest part of the whole thing. A vulture hedge fund, which has nothing but profit margin in mind, nothing but building up a depleted asset so they could spend it for maximum return. And this is what you get. And there are certain clubs in the world, and Coco just said it right. Coco's reading my mind, that there are certain clubs in the world that are not penny pinchers. They're not. They shouldn't be. If they are, there's something very, very wrong. Manchester United is penny pinching. Something is very, very wrong. If Barcelona, they're broke now, right? Because they spent like drunken sailors. If Real Madrid, Milan, Juve, Inter, these clubs should not be penny pinchers. They shouldn't be, right? And you have Maldini, who was the face that you put in front of every prospective recruit coming in. This is not like some massive conglomerate where, you met with this whole team and, yes, we're selling you on this big project and, we have 5 different sporting people that you're going to talk to. You sat in front of Paolo Mother effing Maldini. And that man, who is Mr. Milan, said, what I am to this team, and I want you here because you're going to be the next of the greats for Milan. When they talk about Paolo Maldini, they're going to be talking about you. And Mikey Magnon bought onto that. Teo Hernandez bought onto that. Rafael Leao brought in on that. And you got Olivier Giroud to come in and buy on that. And now, right after you sign Leao to the contract extension, right after Ibra's out the door, then you let him go. And from every bit of reporting I'm reading, it was a very, very short meeting because there wasn't time to do a deep dive on it. You don't have time to do a deep dive for the person who is Mount Rushmore for your club. There are very few names in Milan's history that need to go up on that Rushmore, and Paolo Maldini's one of them. And you don't have time to do a deep dive conversation on that. This is not the damn USFL, Jerry. This isn't some fly-by-night operation that you just happen to buy into that's your next investment. All right? You Balzac juggling chuckle dick. You need to get out of this club. You need to get out of football. You need to get out of Europe because no team in Europe deserves this. None. I wouldn't wish this on Juventus. And you know how much I hate Juventus.
Yeah.
Because this clown is yet another one of these margin maniac American business owners who wants to come in and buy a club and then sit there and, well, this is a part of our asset portfolio, and we look forward to really bringing tremendous value to our shareholders. And look, nobody wants, dude, go get screwed by a forklift, bro. Nobody wants to hear this mess. Are you winning or not? And there has to be, nobody's going to talk about like, the transfer windows and all that. Okay, great, fine. We dealt with Mr. X. That's the big thing under Berlusconi, is that you had, we're looking to bring in Mr. X in the summer transfer window. We're not talking about that. We're talking about you summarily dismissing the face of Milan for what? We were the banter team. We were the banter team of that league, where it was a joke. We spent 250 million euro, and they blew and for what? Under Yang Hong Lee, blew, and for what? You got nothing out of it, right? So nobody's saying spin like drunken sailors. But when you come in and there's interviews that surface that say, we're looking to buy those 6 to 11 mid-table teams to build a value and all that. I mean, I'm sorry, dude. You can't, if you don't have the cash, there are certain restaurants I don't go eat in because I know I can't afford the damn bill, right? I'm not going in to Lobster Bar this weekend and with the idea that I'm gonna bring your finest champagne, bring over the Dom 65 for us. Yeah, I'm not doing that because I know I don't have the bank account to do it. Jarrett, if you didn't have the cash to run Milan like Milan should be run, get out. Hand it over to somebody who can. And if you have a disagreement on how much money should be spent. That's fine. I'm okay with being fiscally responsible. I'm okay with building the academy. These are things I've yelled about for a long time. But to blow out the face of your team because he says, look, man, we need reinforcements. And you say, we're not spending anything, only on free transfers. You don't belong in that seat. You're not man enough to be in that seat. You don't have the stones to sit there and put your name on the line that is dotted because you don't possess the funds to do it. And I'll give Todd Bowley this. At least he tried. He went out and spent like the drunkest of drunken sailors. At least he attempted to keep up with what Roman was doing. You know, like you either going to sit down at Lobster Bar, or you sitting down at Red Lobster, my guy. And if you want to sit down at Red Lobster, there's not a damn thing wrong with it. And there are plenty of clubs in Europe who would love to have somebody with a Red Lobster budget come in because they don't even have that. This is not our club, just like all of these other teams that we have claimed are our clubs. These are all business ventures. And we all have backed these business ventures for a very long time. And with the expectation that they will do their best to win. Nobody signs up for a club, except Spurs supporters, who say, we are okay being mid-table. Milan supporters aren't going to sit there and be like, yeah, we're okay being a mid-table team who occasionally is going to jump and punch above our weight. Bitch, we are the weight. We are the team in Europe that people look at from a historical standpoint and say, yeah, we want to be them. Because this Real Madrid and us. We are the weight. We are the bar. Don't sit there talking about trying to reach up and grab the bar once in a while. Bitch, we are the bar. And you're sitting there talking about, we're going to bring tremendous value. You go buy like a Salernitana, man. We have nothing for you here. I cannot wait for the Coda Sud to get a hold of this guy. Cannot wait for it. Because look, it is heated. And look, Twitter is not a real place, right? No. Twitter's not a real place. No. People spew, and I think a lot of times these corporate knuckleheads sit there and go, oh, it's just social media. It's going to blow over. You don't know European football if that's your mentality. Because these people are keeping it 100, right? There's a reason why even the great and mighty Juve sat there and said, "Hey, look, we aren't really going to go after the ultras. Okay, we're gonna push back. We're gonna shove against them a little bit, but we're really not going to go after them." There's a reason why Inter, backed by Chinese money, didn't go after the ultras, right? There's a reason, because they know what happens when you do that. And if Jerry with a G, douchebag, thinks he's going to be able to drop a couple of free transfers, maybe one mid-level signing, and call it good, and think that's going to assuage the venom that the ultras have. How often do I come on this show and use any sort of like ridiculous language? Never.
No.
And if I'm this heated, good Lord. And I sat through 10 years of Milan being mid. And I stuck with my team because that's what you do. My team was mid. We were a joke. We were ran by an absentee landlord, but we can at least sit there and say Yong Hong Lee tried with his monopoly money. He tried. Hate the hustle, but brother tried. This guy, he's like a walking shade of khaki. He's the worst of American management culture, where there's no joy in life. It's only value for shareholders.
It's balance sheets and EBITDA, brother.
It's it. I mean, if you're going to be a ridiculous American owner, at least be an American owner with balls. That's my thing. At least have the stones to compete. If you don't have the stones to compete, don't bother. And I think that's really where, Juve, they had the balls to compete. They had the balls to break the law to try to win. And to sit here and say that, oh, it's going to be, we're trying to find this value of, really just try to slowly build up this thing where we have talent coming. And Moncada, you snake. Moncada, you snake. Sitting there with a man who backed your moves when you were there, even though you had some bum signings, because he was the director of scouting. When everybody says, oh, well, De Ketelare was a disaster, right? Who do you think scouted him? Moncada. Who's in charge now? Moncada. Oh, all you did, you child, was remove the shield that protected you, Jerry. There's so many things that could have gone wrong. And if Maldini was there, he would have taken the slings and arrows for you with love and affection. And instead, all that's left is an empty suit with no balls, shriveled up, tiny little mini grapes that are shriveled in the sun. That's all you have, you zero testosterone clown. Get out of here with your bounce checkbooks. And I'm going to shut up before I say anything worse, because this absolute, I swear to God, he is the worst of corporate culture, and that's who's running Milan now. And that is the worst. That is the worst thing that could have happened.
Morning, Jarrett.
Good morning.
Oh,
Good morning.
You've gone digital. Duck out and come back in.
Why?
No, because you sound like robot Jarrett. Exactly.
I swear to God, man. If you don't go on a BMW lot unless you're ready to buy the BMW. You don't go on a Rolls Royce lot unless you're ready to buy the Rolls Royce.
Morning, God. Jarrett.
Morning, John.
There we go. So Nick is less than pleased with what's going on at Milan right now.
Yeah, why wouldn't he be?
And Nick,
I'm busy complaining about the lack of morals in the PGA Tour after they stood there with their spine in a semi 90-degree angle with their nose turned up and told us how they were all for the integrity of the game and the integrity of humanity and this, that, and the other. And all it took was a nice little check from the LIV Tour, and all of a sudden now they're merging.
Strange how that plays.
Yeah.
As we were all laughing at the tour where Penn and Teller were sitting there, and
you got to mute your phone, Jarrett. You're getting crazy feedback.
Yeah, but as long as Penn and Teller were there to uproot the broadcast of the LIV on the CW, you kind of figured that something was going to happen. So congratulations to the PGA Tour for accepting the rather large check, I'm quite sure, from LIV this morning, now that the two have merged.
I was just enjoying the fact that Nick turned into basically Jerry Stiller during the Festivus episode. That was lovely.
Oh, no doubt. And by the way, it's the PGA Tour, the LIV, and the DP World Tour. So all three are unifying the game of golf. The PIF has signed an agreement to combine its golf-related commercial businesses and rights with the PGA Tour and the DP. So congratulations to all involved.
I wonder if Greg Norman had to get out of the operation for PGA to make the move.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that
he was. Ooh, man, the venom for that man was real.
Well, and I will continue to maintain that Greg will not be mincing words, even if he's not involved in an administrative role. I'm sure that he will continue to carry flags and water and say things, since we've always known him to be rather demure when it comes to saying what he thinks.
Well, the thing is that in the 80s, we had on TV every Saturday morning the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
Mm-hmm.
And $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase came walking out. He had his black sequin suit on with the gold dollar bill signs all over it. Mm-hmm. He had his own. He couldn't win a belt, so he went and spent money and had one made.
Yeah. And
he said the words that have echoed through the years to be 100% factual, which is everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
Absolutely.
And the million just turned $1 billion. And that's what's happening now. We see it across sports where if you have a really terrible reputation, what you do is you sit down in your pristine suit, you look across from somebody, and you negotiate for their soul. And you just sit there and say, for the price of your ability to look your own self in the mirror, just tell me when to stop writing zeros. Mm-hmm. How many zeros does it take for you to be okay with the fact that you can't look at yourself in the mirror?
Yeah.
And that's across the board. That's when you see these names popping up, we're going to bring this player or that player to the Saudi league. You know what? Enjoy that when your wives and girlfriends can't drive themselves anywhere. Enjoy when you really want to go get that nice bottle of wine and you can't get it. Enjoy,
only for poor people though, Nick. Only
true.
For poor people. Different set of rules. If you got the money and the talent.
Yeah, rules for thee, but not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then having your social media, essentially bought and paid for. You lose your voice. Some people want to be Ariel and Ursula. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're willing to give up everything, at the price of your voice. Have fun with that. Let me know how that works out for you. But it's hilarious, And do you remember the movie Any Given Sunday?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God, I love that movie so much. Where the late Jim Brown was playing the defensive coordinator. And he told the head coach of Al Pacino, he said, "Look, I'm just going to go back to high school, man. I'm getting out of this whole thing. I'm going to go back to high school where it's just kids in the game." And at some point, those of us who love sports are going to just have to, if you want to get away from all that mess, you're going to have to make the choice to support, lower tier, lower league independent teams.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to have to, that's the choice that we're going to be facing.
Yeah.
Phil
Mickelson had all of 3 words to tweet about today. Awesome day today, with a smiling emoji with the rosy cheeks. Nick says, Nick with the Carl Showalter vibes this morning. I'm not going to debate you, Jerry. I'm not going to sit here and debate. And it's once again, and Rich, I did click on the CNBC article. Basically, it is a rehash of the press release. More details are set to come. Basically, the end of the press release, more details set to come with the merger of the 3 tours. And, more information when it becomes available is basically what it was. Because you had a lot of posturing from people with positions of power. And that's what the CNBC article was. I don't mind the casualness. I mind a whole lot of other things about the tour. I'm the kind of guy that likes the 16th hole at Phoenix. I like what that has evolved into. And I like that there are some tournaments that will have a hole like that occasionally. I don't want it every week, because you go to 16 at Scottsdale and it has turned into this, coliseum and an amphitheater of noise and craziness and, booing and cheering. Having that every once in a while, I'm cool with. I don't want that every single hole, every single week. It kind of gets old, because you're sitting there and it's like, oh, they're celebrating again. Great. It makes you wonder. Makes you wonder about the broadcasts and how the folks from the LIV are going to get reintegrated. Is it going to be two separate streams? Is it going to be, how do you want to play that? But yeah, so merger, congratulations, PGA, LIV, and the DP. You're all together as one. I have zero interest in paying money to go see any of those events.
What's the next sport they try and whitewash into? Because can you imagine them deciding they want to get into like a NASCAR competition with NASCAR and just go after the France family?
The NFL or Major League Baseball. Bam says tennis.
Yeah, I can see
tennis is a really good shout.
Yeah, that's a really good shout. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's accessible. It's worldwide. And I think that you could probably get into tennis for a percentage that you could in having to deal with others. Yeah. And Rich, Rich says they went to a course by him. Unfortunately, it was a course that was owned by a particular individual. 3 days, all the fixings for $90. Yeah, and that's what they try to do. They draw you in with an economic approach, but at the end of the day, you bring in more people for $90. I mean, if you bring in 45,000 people for $90 over the span of a weekend versus 10,000 at higher rates, you're still balancing it out. And so I don't think the PIF and the LIV cares. And Bam with an interesting point about the LIV. Went to places the PGA abandoned, and they could do the same for tennis. Absolutely.
Honestly, that's what made me think of NASCAR was if somebody went up against the France family and started hitting these old tracks in the South that have been abandoned or aren't getting as many runs as they used to. Especially, the ones in North Carolina, Texas Motor Speedway, another race at Atlanta, that sort of thing.
Tom could also see cricket or rugby with them having a much bigger following around the world than here. I mean, could you imagine the T20 picked up by the PIF? Something like that?
I think that's. I mean, honestly, what they're going to do is I think you're going to see racing for sure.
Yeah.
That.
You think they get into Formula One?
Yeah. Yeah. And because it's something that they're going to start looking at emerging sports. They're already established, right? They're in established sports. F1 was in trouble for a while.
Yeah. Thank you, Bernie Ecclestone. Yeah.
And so, now that it's more popular than ever, you're going to. I think that there's opportunities there for them to really start dumping walls of cash, and as long as they keep letting the personalities show up, it's really going to be hard for people to see the giant money man behind the curtain, and all they're going to be seeing is Emerald City, Emerald City, Emerald City. And that's exactly what they want. And, it's going to be nothing but friendly, falcons flying around for pro-Saudi, travel and business investment commercials. And that's what they want to have happen. And that using emerging sports or using sports that have been, a little bit underfunded. I think rugby is an avenue that is absolutely going to start is going to be getting funding. It's something where it's played globally. It's huge in the Pacific region, and then slowly growing over here in the United States. I think with significant funding, that you could see rugby start to really take off here. And any sport that you could think of where, man, if they just had funding for this, it would be all over. The Saudis are going to be looking at that. And I think Rich nailed it. They're going to be going after sports, international sports with growth opportunity.
Coco is asking about go ahead, Jarrett.
I would say I wouldn't even look at competing with F1. Remember, F1 is owned by Liberty Media.
Yeah, well, to that point,
I think it would be easier for them and more efficient to just straight up try and buy F1 as opposed to competing with it and then taking it over and merging. Might be cheaper just to straight out buy it.
Right.
Yeah, they tried in early. This is from Bloomberg when you guys were mentioning it. January of this year, PIF attempted to add F1. Potential deal faltered in the early stages of 2022, as Liberty Media was not interested in selling, which the PIF valued at well above $20 billion, including debt. The PIF remains interested in the asset and would be a serious bidder should Liberty Media change their mind, decide to sell. This is from Turner, Nair, and Martin at Bloomberg back in January.
Yeah. Oh, look, the acquisition of Twitter shows if you come in and the dollars are enough for hostile takeover is not out of the question. I mean, they can do it. So it's I don't think the Saudis are going to get involved in the NFL. I think that the old white guy network is too strong there, and they're not going to let that happen. But I absolutely think rugby, I think elements of cricket could be rival startup leagues outside of your traditional powers could be an option. I think F1 outright purchases is probably an option. They are clearly in the business of, and I've seen a lot of comparisons with, when China tried buying all the superstars. The difference is that China was trying to compete economically within the big three, right? They were trying to maintain their status in the big three of, Russia, the United States, and of course China itself. The Middle East has no such desires. They know exactly who they are. They know exactly the linchpin that they occupy in the global markets. They can do whatever they want for themselves, and they don't really care. So they were going to buy a lot of these players who they know will toe the line, who will not be uppity in the media and say things they're not supposed to say. They'll put on the traditional clothing, and they'll shake hands with whichever royal figure is in front of them. They'll go back to their sweet palatial compounds, driven in Rolls-Royce limousines, and it's no big deal, But at some point, it's going to be on us as consumers, and I hate using this corporate terminology, but it is what it is.
It's what it is.
It's going to be us as consumers to decide what we are going to tolerate. It's the same with AI generated art and scripts and movies and things like nation state backed teams and nation state backed leagues. It's going to be on us. And if there's an audience for it, they're going to keep going. And if there's not an audience, then they'll lose interest and go find where the audience is. So it's on us.
There was already talk about that was what some of the studios were banking on with the writer's strike in Hollywood, was that they would go on strike and that the studios would be able to basically generate AI scripts, generate AI pitches, that sort of thing, and not have a significant drop-off in viewership and revenue, and just wait it out and save money in the long term and the short term.
Well, it's a reason why it's called unscripted television now. It's not reality television anymore, right? That's an antiquated term.
Yeah.
I'll give you an idea of what they view the talent level required to run these shows. Is that I was an associate producer at Turner Sports, and after I got laid off, I had a conversation with someone who said, "Hey, we want you to go be a showrunner in LA for one of these home remodeling shows." You're talking about going from an associate producer for NCAA.com and NBA.com to a showrunner? Like that's like jumping on a trampoline and trying to reach Mars. Like it makes zero sense. It doesn't really. That's why they have these shows. That's why shows like Dr. Pimple Popper are in massive syndication now, because hey, we didn't get that take. Can we redo this again? Yeah, sure, no problem. And it's, there's no real heavy scripting. You write your very loose script on it's an Napster. You're 100% correct. It's a matter of when you get laid off from Turner. You just write your script on some poster board. Hey, Tom from Sheboygan, read this. My house was falling apart and they have helped me rebuild it. And thank you, people of Great Rehab Home Show. And that's it. And then you post it and people sit down and watch hours and hours and hours. You don't have to pay writers a ton of money. You don't have to pay actors a ton of money. Crews. It's all about margin. That's it.
Rich saying Americans keep thinking the Saudis are going to come after American sports. They're going to go after the big international ones.
Yep.
Bam mentions USA Rugby, especially the sevens, is booming.
Love sevens.
Rich is mentioning two words: Olympics equivalent.
Yes, I think they're going to buy the Olympics because it's becoming there. What you're going to see is you'll see, Riyadh offer to say, hey, look, Riyadh will be the home of the Summer Olympics going forward.
Well, all right. So here, let me pose this as a thought.
Mm-hmm.
We know that CR38 is a part of being an ambassador for the Vision 2030 project.
Mm-hmm.
Odds are, I would also anticipate that when they bring in Benzema, that's why he's getting $640 gazillion for a 2, possibly a 3-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
And Messi is being offered 1.2 double extra large, and he's already an ambassador. If, and I say if, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, because when the Saudis sit there and say that we will fund an African Champions League starting in 2024, that if the Saudis are awarded the 2030 World Cup, that would be a step in that direction to prove that they can host large events in multiple venues in any given time frame. I would anticipate that Vision 2030 would be that stepping stone to prove, hey, look what we can do. Am I off?
I don't think you're off. I don't think you're off. I think they understand certain limitations, like the Winter Olympics. Obviously, are I wouldn't put it past them. Money can buy anything, but
they had to practically beg Beijing to host the Winter Games. No one wants to host the Winter Games. They don't make money. They haven't made money for years. But one of the things that's happening is people finally have figured out the same thing that they have not yet figured out en masse about sports stadiums, which is that the difference between financial profit and economic profit. And what you're looking at with the Olympics is the fact that you don't make money off of them. The IOC does. Like, look, every 10 or 15 years, the IOC basically has to oil change their people because they get arrested for bribery, and they just have to oil change out until they can get out of jail. And you're going to be in a situation where eventually, you might end up seeing what you're talking about with the IOC basically get bought up and the Saudis run it. Like, the IOC is not going to have anyone to blame but themselves for the way the entire Olympic Games have been run for the last 30 years.
And Rich
remember what happened with, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Not just Rich makes the point. Remember the Goodwill Games.
Mm-hmm. Well, when Atlanta got the 96 games, it was because Billy Payne promised everything under the sun to make it happen. Like, I remember that there was supposed to be a museum, an Olympics museum built that would have hologram statues of all the IOC board members. And Juan Antonio Samaranch was not happy that brick one of this museum was never put to ground, that they didn't receive the all of the magical stuff that they had been promised. I'm sure they got a ton of that corporate money though. And still, I think if memory serves, the Atlanta games are the only ones that really broke even, if not were profitable.
Well, LA was the one that started that trend.
Yeah. Atlanta made good money though, because they basically went behind the IOC's back and started doing their own marketing and sales and their own merchandising away from the IOC, which is where the IOC made its bank. And it's the fabled thing that we have always talked about, Nick and I especially, even together, which is you mess with a lot of people, you don't mess with the rich people's money. And that's what Atlanta did. Like, Atlanta's never going to get the games again in the modern era because of the way they went about their business. It would help for Atlanta is the fact that you got, and you still do have, significant use in the facilities that were built. If you go look at the other facilities that have been built for the Olympics, going back to 1992 even, into 88, however far you want to go, the stadium in 96 got a really good run out of the Atlanta Braves stadium. That is its own entirely different conversation with the way the Braves and the city of Atlanta handled things. But Georgia State's using it now. You're getting consistent use out of the facilities, which a lot of places have not. For me, that is where Atlanta was the biggest outlier, is that their facilities were not built and then sat there collecting dust like they did in Athens or in Sydney.
And to Ricky's point, Atlanta was the last profitable one. LA in 28 should be the next one, because they know how to run these things.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, and one other thing that we've talked about a lot is that what we have traditionally considered rich and what's rich today, it's not even remotely close. The show Mr. Robot, for anybody who has not watched that one, I think you must watch that show. At the final season, and yes, Airborne DJ, the tennis center, I think, is the definite exception to that. That's probably the one place that's growing a ton of grass right now. But the final season, the main character of Mr. Robot is having this debate with this street level criminal. And he's like, oh, I'm going to get all this money and I'm going to be, rich, and I'm going to own this town. And the lead character is like, you have no concept of what rich is, like no concept of how comically outgunned you would still be. If you had all the money to own New York, you have no concept of how ridiculously poor you would be compared to the people you're talking about going after. People like Jerry Cardinal, man, he's like a mid-level supervisor compared to the money that is being thrown around these days. These are people that would make Rockefeller blush. I mean, it's a completely different ball game now that nation states are involved in athletic endeavor.
RedBird right now manages over $8.6 billion of capital, principally across sports, TMT, financial services, and consumer industry verticals. This is through their own notification through LinkedIn, and how they identify themselves on LinkedIn. RedBird invests with an entrepreneurial company building mentality, with an emphasis on capital appreciation and compounding equity returns over longer holding periods. RedBird's network of business founders and entrepreneurs is central to its investment sourcing strategy, and its highly curated group of limited partners are active co-investors who provide scalable capital support. Man, there's a lot of buzzwords in there.
Oh, yeah. How much? That is an SEO dream right there. Scalable capital.
Some synergy in there.
Yes,
we need to have agility with our assets.
Yes. So Goldman Sachs partner Jerry Cardinal, $8.6 billion in capital across all of their verticals. So that's what you're staring
Which
at.
Is 8.6 billion in capital.
Mm-hmm.
Now compare that with like QSI, and get me those numbers and let me know what stratosphere he's playing in. Jerry Cardinale is intercontinental title material, right? He's never going near the Universal Championship. He's never going to be in that picture. He's never going to be remembered in the same arenas as these people who are just the level of wealth, would corrupt just about anyone. And Jerry and RedBird are at the very, very shallow end of that pool.
Mm-hmm.
So,
closed shareholder.
You know who's going to be really pissed off about this among the many people who are pissed off is the golfers who didn't go to LIV in the first place, be it for financial reasons. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that anybody did or didn't do it for right reasons or wrong reasons. There's absolutely the possibility you had golfers who didn't go for humanitarian reasons, who decided, I don't want to go play for the Saudis. I got beef with them. I disagree with things. I'm going to stick with what I know, what I'm secure with PGA. Maybe some of the younger golfers heard this and said, oh, well, we're going to stick with PGA for whatever reason, only to see PGA turn around and take that check from LIV. And it should be a lesson to some of these cats, especially in individual sports. Now, team sports are a different animal, but an individual sport like golf or tennis, it should be a lesson to them. You better be looking out for number one going forward, because I promise you, the governing body that runs your sport gives exactly zero shits about you.
Trying to find anything on the QSI website, which apparently was last updated in 2017. Paddle, Braga, PSG, Next Step Marketing, and Berta Sport are the assets listed by QSI as to trying to determine who they are. So I'm sitting here trying to figure out if there's okay, PSG now. Okay, so PSG by description, according to Forbes, is the world's 7th most valuable football club, worth $4.2 billion, according to Forbes.
One team
in the QSI portfolio is worth half of the controllable assets that RedBird has in total.
Yeah. Checkers and chess. It's checkers and chess. You're not. This is what we're talking about. That one asset, is worth half your portfolio. When we talk about the Glazers and the money that they have, right? Baby, you're in a different ball game. You're in a different league. You're not playing the same sport. It's hilarious. And I think, Jarrett brought up a good point of like all these players with all these golfers with PGA who didn't take the deal to go fly on LIV's jets.
Because you know I need a corporate jet.
Yeah, who didn't sign to take all this big money, and now they are going to be forced to do business with these.
And they're not going to get. They're probably not going to get the kind of contract that Phil did, or some of these other, or I think Bryson's over there. They're not going to get those kind of deals now. No. They're not going to get that exclusivity deal.
Nope.
And maybe PGA lightly threatens them, or I'm sorry. How can I say this? Very convince them. Reasonable bit of convincing. It would be a shame for you and your family if you were to go over to LIV. We'd hate to see that. And if they did that, holy God, those guys would be pissed, and they should be.
Yeah. But it all comes down to follow the money. right? And the money changes direction like the tide, man. You know, so all these guys, all these golfers who are looking at that LIV money and said, "Oh well, I don't think I can live with myself if I do that," and then all of a sudden that tide changes. Oh man, we better take that money. You know, it's the same thing in international soccer with these guys who are looking at, you know, Father Time's undefeated, and that they start looking at the big teams don't want him anymore. Contracts are coming to an end, and they have that very, very small window for earning potential. And you have Saudi hands out there just dumping cash, right? And some players are going to be like, nope, I'm walking away. I'm not taking that money. I'm going out on my own terms, and I'm going to be happy with myself. And you're going to have some players who say, no, I'm going to go get that bag. And, you know, good luck to them. And, you know, Walchara, yeah, it is Olympics down here. It is business overseas there. You know, we could talk about Atlanta United. That's fine. But we're going to talk about what we want to talk about. And if you don't want to listen to what we want to talk about, then by all means, there's 4 billion other different podcasts and radio stations you can listen to. And if you want to talk to any of us on social media, feel free to take us off block and do so. But until then, tune in, be a part of the conversation, or help steer the conversation, and have a Coke and a smile and a good one.
To answer your question about QSI, QSI is listed as a subsidiary of the Qatar Investment Authority. In 2021, now we mentioned how one asset of QSI is worth half of RedBird's portfolio, full total valuation. In 2021, the Qatar Investment Authority had an estimated amount of assets, $450 billion.
That is comic.
$450 billion assets to sit there and compare, contrast RedBird Financial and Goldman Sachs with $8.2 billion in controllable assets, where half of that money is the worth of PSG. And that is 1% of the Qatar Investment Authority's full-blown asset management of $450 billion.
Yep. Let them, if they want to make Super League, let them. And any team that wants to go to Super League, let them. And the market will sort it out. They threw so much money at these players.
It's a line item write-off, though.
And yeah, it means it's a blip. It means nothing. It's a speck. You know, and in the end, you could say they won because they got PGA to capitulate, which I'm sure comes down to, you know, discovery. Nobody wants their emails dumped in public.
Discovery phase for the PGA Tour. Had this gone to any kind of a trial or a court proceeding? Discovery phase of the PGA Tour?
Yeah.
That would have been very, very interesting, sir.
I had a lawyer friend of mine suggest one time that the advice he gives his clients is you treat every email as if it's the front page of the New York Times. That if you don't want it on the front page of the New York Times, then by all means, don't send it. You know, to keep it word of mouth, do not put it, because when it goes to discovery, all of it's coming out.
Yeah.
And that's that's step one for any sort of civil case, is that it's all going to be going to discovery. And that's where all your deals are made. And that's where all the pressure gets put on. So yeah, Jason, I'm right there with you, man. When we were in Iraq, our base, we were the second largest air base in Iraq, and so inside of that border, you had these small little rectangular grid mini camps that were all over the place. And in ours, oil just bubbled up from the ground, right? And so me being the proper idiot that I am, I went and dug up a piece of rebar, probably about 4.5, 5 feet of rebar, took one of my T-shirts and wrapped it in the top like a flag and went screaming out and planted my rebar right in the middle of this oil bubbling up and screamed that I claim this in the name of the People's Republic of Nikistan. And of course, this happens right as like a whole gaggle of officers went walking by, and somebody goes, "Hey, you idiot, the U.S. is in control of this territory." And they just kept walking. So, yeah, just look for that oil, keep digging. Best of luck to you. I would suggest looking for property in certain parts of Louisiana. Of course, Texas is pretty much gobbled up. But yeah, so Louisiana might be your last shot here, unless you're looking for like oil sand territory.
Yeah. When we set up the show to be what it is, yes, Rich, political semantics of land claims down here. It's territorial rights.
Hey, man, here. You know what? Playing PGA at LIV for today. Nick came to cut a promo at AC Milan, which made sense. I'm still in mourning because Ange Postecoglou left, and I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to have to cheer for Jesse Marsh next year.
Yeah.
We had our talking points, and then LIV and PGA had to go cock things up, man. Don't be mad at us.
No. No, but the thing is, it's all part of the infrastructure of sport in general. And so when we look at the assets of RedBird being $8 billion, good for you. Then we look at the value of PSG, and then we look at the value of Qatari Sports Investment and the Qatari Investment Authority, and look at the future of sport and who could be looking at things and running things and all that kind of stuff. Coco, there's enough corruption in the Louisiana state government. Don't need any help.
That's very true, man. Huey Long just like set up in his grave and went, "What? Money?
Yeah,
for me?
Oh, cool. Yes. It's like you get the Undertaker move from Huey Long. Comes up out of the casket.
So
it is off,
but I have to jump, unfortunately, and I do want to leave you with this. When does the LIV people make their own wrestling corporation, and who is going to be their figurehead, and why is it Hulk Hogan?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, no doubt. So Jarrett will be back at it for a normal Wall Pass Wednesday tomorrow.
Normal, he says, with something resembling confidence.
Correct.
Yeah. If the Saudis make a wrestling organization, 110% Hulk Hogan would be that dude. He would take that money in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, absolutely, no question about it. Never, absolutely, never normal, Abby. That's why this show is what it is, and the network is what the network is. So, you're back at it tomorrow, Jarrett?
Yeah, that's the game plan. I'm going to go stare at Jesse Marsh rumors. Although it sounds like Brendan Rodgers will not be coming to Glasgow.
And there was much.
So now So now it looks like last I saw, some of the names linked were Marsh, Newton over at Bodo Glimt, who's kind of the hipster pick, but I think also Ajax wants him. I think Ajax wants him as well, and I think he would do well at Ajax. David Moyes, but we talked about Moyes yesterday, and I think there were a couple other names.
Neil Lennon.
Neil Lennon, his name has not been mentioned. If Neil Lennon shows up, the fans might deconstruct that stadium brick by brick.
Oh, no doubt.
Patsy Gallagher will come back from the dead and eat Lawl's brains.
Yeah.
Not
a visual that I needed, sir.
Then don't bring Neil Lennon back. That's what you don't want.
No, we have not mentioned FDB's new job.
We did not mention FDB's new job. The
man is getting paid.
Speaking of getting paid in the Middle East.
Yes, and good for you, Frank DeBoer. The news on Frank DeBoer, provided I could spell it and have it done properly. He's Al Jazeera is where he's going. So Frank DeBoer has got his next gig at Al Jazeera FC.
Man, go get your money, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Go get your money.
That's what it's looking like. So Frank DeBoer is getting getting the bag, I believe, is how the kids refer to it.
I just hope he has SPF 75 ready to go, because he's going to be man.
That will be needed. And 4Card, basically, that's what this is. It turned into SOT this morning, and because we've got a lot of stuff going on, and Al Jazeera FC, Rich. But yeah, I mean, there are mornings where there's a lot of stuff happening over in Europe that impacts everything else. And the sheer fact that when the news broke yesterday of everything going on with Nick's beloved Milan, that we had to talk about it because there is a greater context that's attached to it.
Yes.
And so as much as we'd like to sit there and go, okay, why did you guys basically wipe out your front office? Was the desire of Cardinal the idea of, okay, for 4 or 5 straight years that the budget and value of the club with all of its players went down? Was it 4 years in a row that it?
4 years in a row. It went from it's been halved.
Okay.
It was like 80 million, and then it dropped down to like 40 million. I think it was. And then they had some transfer windows where they spent absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And so when you have something like that happen, there's a greater context that needs to be attached to it. And that's why we're probably going to be talking a lot of soccer over there, because especially as we get closer to the transfer window. And when you have clubs that do this kind of stuff and they're owned by these conglomerates of hedge funds that are looking at earnings per share, increasing earnings per share, and becoming lean, agile, and viable so the assets can be flipped to other places, do not be surprised that if Cardinal wants to, and RedBird, they want to continue to be this lean version of a hedge fund, that in a couple of years' time, traditionally assets last about 3 years in a hedge fund. If Cardinal sits there and or RedBird sits there and goes, okay, we think that we've maxed out this idea of Milan. You make them more lean. You make them more agile. You're hearing all these corporate buzzwords because they're attached to a hedge fund. Do not be surprised if RedBird wants to flip Milan, because you're talking about year 4 right now. When did RedBird pick up Milan, Nick?
What was it? A year ago? I want to say about a year ago, year and a half ago.
Okay, so right now you're probably right there on that edge of maybe another year or two of RedBird being part of the portfolio, or involving part of their portfolio in Milan. Do not be surprised that when RedBird looked at the one large deal of $30 million for one player and it didn't work out, that they wigged. It's like, oh, we can't invest that kind of money. Then therefore you're going to continue to see things. You're going to whittle down Milan and its operating revenue to a point to where it's lean and it's agile, and you're going to hear those words, Jerry Cardinal and everybody.
But what the big concern, and I'll keep this very short. It all goes back to FFP, financial fair play. Berlusconi, the old guard, said they looked at the math and said, we are dumping way too much of our own money into this. There's no way UEFA is going to let us live. Sell the teams. So a lot of the old guard got out. That meant that there was a power vacuum. Chinese money tried to occupy that power vacuum. It has been largely a failure.
Yeah.
Now you have American hedge funds who are trying to fill the vacuum, and they will run it like hedge funds. And yes, that RedBird does own part of the Yankees. So
it's Fenway Sports Group that they own.
There we go. Okay, so it's the reversal. So it's what you have is now American hedge funds are going to run it like an American hedge fund.
Correct.
And they will treat this no differently than they would treat any sort of real estate investment or any other like small, medium business to, like growth stage business acquisition. Lean as possible, maximum profits, and they will try to do their best to be top four. What's left in Italy that's not in this particular bucket, Napoli.
Mm-hmm.
And Napoli's in a weird boat because Aurelio Fuentes owns Bari as well, and Bari's getting, if I'm accurate on, promoted to Serie A. So you can't own two teams in Serie A.
Right.
So which one is De Laurentiis going to sell? Or you just say, oh, well, of course he's going to sell Bari. His stadium deal with Bari is far better than what it is with Napoli, where Naples refuses to really invest in the Diego Maradona. So where's he going to go? And obviously he's competent enough to have two teams be really successful, but he's really the last of the old guard that is remaining in Serie A. And so, the world's changing. You're saying, well, how does this affect, for stars out there who say, how does this what does that have to do with MLS? It has a lot to do with MLS because these teams are going to be to buy talent. That whenever Atlanta United or LAFC or NYCFC to move these players, right? And we want 5, 30, the more buyers you have over, the greater opportunity you have to sell one of these players like, an Almada for a ridiculous price. But if funds have they're going to squeeze the market to the point where 30 million for Almada, like 8 or 9. What do you think? Like they're going to try to get it done on the cheap. So soccer over there affects soccer, and it will direct how we are able to, what's the acquisition profile for an MLS club when it comes to trying to either keep here or move them to Europe. And what's the acquisition model for Europe? Are we going to be fishing in the same pond going forward, looking at these 8-9 million value for starting talent? Because if we're fishing in the same pool as European teams, it's really, really tough. And it's going to be reliant upon us have an academy that continues to churn out product, which so far, Atlanta United's been pretty damn good at doing.
Yep. And Ricky reminds us of the Apple TV getting the documentary series on Lionel Messi. And once again, we have maintained as since we are now in stoppage time this morning, that Apple is using Major League Soccer as their own petri dish. They're sitting there and saying, okay, hey, look what we can do with a league as a partner and having all of the assets of a league under one umbrella. We are the primary rights holder for Major League Soccer. I think that this is another part of Apple TV sitting there saying, hey, look what we can do when it comes to the sport of soccer. I think that when it comes to contracts for big ticket items, Apple's laying a lot of groundwork here. Like I said, I think Major League Soccer is the petri dish and try to figure out, okay, how do we handle production? How do we handle multiple things going on at one time? How do we handle all these different things? And then you come in here with this documentary with Lionel Messi and goes through the World Cup in the country that held it last time back in 2022. It will be interesting to see how much of a player Apple continues to become, especially in the sport of soccer. So we're going to keep an eye on that as well. This was, like I said, when we have Tuesday thoughts or anything like that, when we have breaking news, we always have a rundown. But then when breaking news happens, we're not going to ignore it and, what it means to the grander sphere of things that we talk about on a daily basis. And so when in hour number 2, we had the big news with LIV and with the DP and with the PGA Tour, we got to talk about it. But we also talk about it within the context of the sport that is here at the network and how it can impact things. And one of the things that I've always enjoyed is for lack of a better word, Nick, the nimbleness of our audience. And how when breaking news happens, we'll sit there and we'll go down a path and we'll come back and talk about another path and things like that and how everything's all intertwined and everything. And so I've always given our audience here at the network a lot of credit for sitting there and dealing with our whiplash and handling it really well. So this was another morning of another part of whiplash. And so, it's been fun to sit there and talk about things this morning. And before we go, let me get into, it is derailed for card to a degree, but we'll get into gossip, rumor, and innuendo and viewing habits today. We are starting our in-session post-season interviews with a lot of the cool high school stories here in and around the state. We're going to catch up with the head coach at Richmond Hill on the boys' side and the head coach of Dalton on the boys' side. We're going to start those interviews, try to catch up with all the champs and a lot of the intriguing stories that have happened this season when it comes to high school soccer. So we'll catch up with that, and that's going to start, and we'll have those out on the network later this week, both in the video and on the audio side from our friends at Kaiser Permanente helping us out with In Session. Viewing habits today. BN and BN Español has the Copa Libertadores, 6, 8:30, and 10. Nacional Internacional, interesting. River Plate and Fluminense, and the strongest in Sporting Cristal. NWSL Challenge Cup on CBS Sports Networks at 7:30. Unimas has a friendly between Mexico and Guatemala. It is, and this is interesting. Okay. Tonight, the resumption of the abandoned match with FC Dallas and St. Louis and St. Louis all caps is at 8:35. FC Dallas in all caps, 8:35 on season pass. And that is tomorrow. That's tomorrow. What am I doing tomorrow? Today. Being an Español. So you'll have a match and a half tomorrow on season pass. Today, Copa Libertadores 6, 8, and 10. Atlético Paranaense, Libertad, Boca Juniors, Colo-Colo, Bolivar, Cerro Porteño. That's 6, 8, and 10 on being an Español. You can also pick that up if you don't have beIN. You can go to Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here, and you can subscribe to Fanatis. You help out the show, and you help out all those places that you haven't had the chance to watch, whether it's Nuestra Tele, it is beIN, it is all the beIN channels. It's TIC, it's for the fans, all those places to watch Gold TV. Pick that up on Fanatis. Jason got me hooked. I blame him. Open Cup tonight. FC Cincinnati, Pittsburgh Riverhounds is at 7. Golazo Network has the Fire and the Dynamo on Open Cup tonight. Bundesliga B, it is the second leg of Arminia Bielefeld and Wehen Wiesbaden. That's at 2:40 on the plus. So that's your viewing habits today. So it is Bundesliga B gravitating into Open Cup and Copa Libertadores. That's your viewing for today. Before we go, gossip, rumor, and innuendo, things left unsaid. And we definitely left a lot unsaid today. All right, gossip before we go. Ilkay Gundogan could return to Borussia Dortmund this summer as Barca can't afford to pay the out-of-contract wages. No joke. And you think they can get messy. Barca have tried to persuade Gundogan by extending their contract offer to 3 years with reduced wages, while Arsenal have offered 2. Any lucrative proposals also expected from a Saudi club. Real Madrid's first bid for Harry Kane for €80 million. Spurs have initially valued him at 120. Spurs backing Ange Postecoglou with funds to rival Newcastle for James Maddison, David Raya, and Max Kilman from Wolves. PSG have beaten Chelsea to the signing of Manuel Ugarte. We talked about that yesterday. Switched their focus to Moises Caicedo instead. They've also revived their interest in Romeo Lavia from Southampton and Eden Hazard. Okay. Alexis is going to sign for Liverpool subject to a medical 5-year deal understood. That's from our friends at The Guardian. Atletico Madrid have inquired about Wilfred Zaha. He'll become a free agent if he doesn't accept the £150,000 a week deal from Crystal Palace, currently on the table. It's from the 4-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Liverpool willing to pay Barcelona €35 million to sign Franck Kessie. Spurs have contacted Everton on a move for Jordan Pickford, but could be put off by the asking price, and he's also under contract through 27. Barcelona and Lewandowski. Lewandowski has no plans to leave the club this summer despite being linked with a move to the Saudi Pro League. Color me shocked. Aston Villa joined the race to sign Yuri Tielemans from Leicester. Portugal keeper Diogo Costa has cooled talk linking him with a move from Porto to Manchester United. That's from the four-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. N'Golo Kante remains open to staying at Chelsea. We mentioned Saudi clubs. It's Al Ittihad and Al Nasser interested in signing him. That's from Fabrizio Romano. Newcastle informed that Calvin Phillips intends to stay at Manchester City. They've also stepped up their efforts to sign Turkish midfielder Arda Güler, 18-year-old from Fenerbahce. Real Madrid have asked Bayern Munich about the possibility of signing Alphonso Davies. Inter Milan have made a move to sign Trevor Chalobah from Chelsea. Brighton set to announce the arrival of Mahmoud Daoud from Borussia Dortmund on a free. West Ham looking at James Ward-Prowse, Conor Gallagher, and Scott McTominay. Victor Lindelof set to be offered a new deal for Manchester United. That's from the three-letter paper. Take the information once again at your own peril. We're going to check the Bielefeld possibility there. We'll see what the score is. According to Fabrizio Romano, thank you, Ricky. Gavi's have been officially registered by La Liga, never been in doubt on Barca and players' side despite links to Premier League clubs on a potential free. New deal valid until June of 26 with $1 billion release clause. Sure. $1 billion. Why not? Let's check on Bielefeld and see what the latest is there. Bundesliga B. Bielefeld is favored at home. And yikes. Yeah, it's looking pretty bad. They lost in the first leg 4-0 to Wehen Wiesbaden. Yikes. You could get back-to-back relegations for Arminia Bielefeld. They'd be playing in the regional leagues. So Bielefeld's got a 4-goal deficit. We know what happened with Sheffield Wednesday. I don't think that Arminia Bielefeld, though, is Sheffield Wednesday. So, yeah, Bielefeld could get relegated again out of the Bundesliga B. They were the 16th team in the 18-team Bundesliga B. And that's in Germany. Remember that they take the team out of Bundesliga B who finishes second to last and puts them in a playoff with the team from the league below. And you could end up with, man, Wehen Wiesbaden could be coming up. Arminia Bielefeld gets relegated for a second time. 4-0 heading into the second leg. That's on 2:30. Yeah, and Stuttgart stayed up. Emilio, that was strong from Stuttgart. They really needed that one. Back-to-back relegations for Arminia Bielefeld and for George Bello. So we'll keep an eye on that today. That's at 2:40. And once again, tonight is other stuff gravitating toward Copa Libertadores. So thanks for hanging out with us for a wild second hour talking about soccer over there globally. But so it starts with Arminia Bielefeld possibly getting a double relegation. Then you've got Open Cup and Copa Libertadores tonight. So once again, thanks for hanging out with us as you always do. Thanks for being the nimble and intelligent audience that you always are. And we don't mind soccer derailed down here because it's always talking about the larger picture. So we'll be back at it again tomorrow. Hopefully Dylan Butler can join us at 10. Bart will join us at 10:30 on a Wall Pass Wednesday because Reffing Down Here wanted to get into a discussion with Bart about what Wayne Rooney said. So we'll get into that discussion too. So a lot of stuff going on. All right. So once again, thanks for hanging out with us. Once again, we went extra time because we needed to, because that's the beauty of having a show like this. It can go as long as it wants. So back at it again tomorrow morning, 9:05. Since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. And I'm going to hit the button to make sure that I'm not talking to myself when we come back after rolling the close. Play it safe, everybody. You'll see you in the morning, tomorrow morning at 9:05. That button.